And next up we have Ryan J. Let's keep it going for him.
Okay, everybody hear me okay? Awesome, all right, let's give it up for Armand again. He was just up here. One of the funniest guys here, I think. A little sad though, you know, I feel like his mom must have like fucked a depressed clown and then 9 months later he popped out. Wow.
Keep my mom out your fucking mouth!
It's a sad clown joke.
Keep my mom out of your fucking mouth!
Okay. Dude. Actually, a great segue into what I wanted to talk about today. So I want to talk about the thing that makes up about 60% of my personality and probably 90% of my clothing choices. I'm a writer. I write books, TV shows, movies. That's why I dress like a disgraced English professor. And the thing you gotta know about writers is that we are absolutely just the worst people. If you don't believe me, just remember that without writers, you wouldn't have had to experience the 8th season of Game of Thrones. The worst thing probably about writers is that we think that we're clever. And then the second worst thing about us is that we think other people want to know how clever we are. Never a good mix. I was actually walking around with my friend the other day, hanging out with him, and he asked me, he's like, Ryan, what does it take to be a writer? And I told him it's actually very simple. If you want to be a writer, the first step is the most important. You need to have an incredibly sad childhood. It's best if you are so ostracized that you don't really have any friends, so lonely to the point that you start making up your own friends, and then just kind of as this progresses, you start making up situations for them to get into and out of, and eventually you start making up dialogue for them. And my friend was like, wow, Ryan, that's really interesting. I bet you could make a whole mediocre comedy act out of that. And I was like, I think I will, thank you. And he goes, oh great, you should do it at the Vspot, I'll show up and cheer you on. And if you're starting to realize that this is one of my imaginary friends, yes, Vincent von Lichtenstein is a 1,000-year-old vampire prince and probably the most supportive of my comedy act. The other thing you need to do if you want to be a writer is you need to idolize other writers, but do it for kind of like fucked up reasons. Like, I knew from the time I was a young kid I was really into Stephen King, and I found out that he, when he was writing Cujo, he was so drunk and did so much cocaine that he doesn't remember writing Cujo. And so normal people should hear that and go, wow, I shouldn't party with Stephen King, I shouldn't do that. But young writers hear that and we think, oh boy, I'm going to use substances too so I can be just like Stephen King. And for some reason, it's always the drug thing that we latch onto, young writers. You know, I've never heard somebody say, like, I'm going to be a writer. And Sylvia Plath was a writer, so I'm going to get really into baking. Oh, I got one laugh. Somebody knows how she died. Yeah, her cooking was to die for. The other thing you have to do if you want to be a writer is just get really fucked up goals, okay? Because other artists, what they want to do, I think, makes sense. If you look at a painter, what they want to do is they want to take an image and recreate it with ink somewhere else. That makes sense to me, that's noble. A sculptor wants to take a rock and turn it into something cool to look at. And when they're done, you usually look at it and you're like, yeah, that's a dude made out of rocks. My proudest moment as an artist, as a writer, came when I made up an imaginary friend, introduced him to my real friends, and then over the course of about 250 pages or so, I made them fall in love with him, and then I killed him in front of them to hurt them. And it worked. I made at least 2 of my best friends cry. The nicest person I've ever met punched me in the arm. And that's my proudest achievement as a person. My college actually had a pretty good way to deal with the writers. They took 8 of us and they locked us up. They corralled us in this 6-bedroom house, like a zoo. or like a nuclear fallout zone. And we were an odd bunch, you might imagine. I remember one woman actually, she went to a safe sex workshop on campus. And so it was a whole class where they taught you like how to use condoms, how to be safe with sex, trying to get people to avoid getting STIs like children or something. And the climax of this class was a race to see who could put a condom on a banana the fastest. And this person I lived with, they won as a prize, paid for with a portion of our tuition dollars. She won a school-sponsored dildo. And she assured us that she never used it for the intended purpose. She painted it orange and maroon, go Crusaders, and took advantage of the suction cup on the back of it to leave it around the writer's house in odd, surprising places. So imagine, if you will, you wake up on a Wednesday morning, hungover as shit, because last night was Tuesday Booze Day and Hemingway was a drunk, so why wouldn't I be? And you go to get into the bathroom and the doorknob, and you know that feeling when you go to take a drink of milk and then you realize that it's orange juice? You go to turn the doorknob and that's not a doorknob in your hand, it's an orange and maroon cock. Because of course, I forgot I live with 7 clever sociopaths. Another time I went back to the writer's house, and one of the guys who lived there with me, Bob, he's packing his car up really hurriedly. And clearly there's something wrong. And I'm like, bro, what's going on? Why are you in such a rush? He goes, I gotta get back to my mom's house. I gotta get to my mom's house. No time to talk. And I'm like, what's going on though? Doesn't she live in New Hampshire? And he pauses for a second, sighs, and he looks at me and he goes, I blacked out last night after getting drunk as shit. I ordered 13 fleshlights, got them sent to my mom's house, and I need to intercept them before she opens the box. Does everybody know what a fleshlight is? Okay, it's basically a vagina inside a Wendy's cup. Apparently they were invented by a cop who was bored on night shift, true story. And so anyway, that's pretty much the end of that part of the story. Bob did get to New Hampshire in time. He stopped his mom from opening the box. But really, I just had more questions than answers. Mainly why he needed 13 of them. You know, that's almost 2 for every day of the week. I think I figured it out. I think he used 2 every day of the week, except on Sundays he only masturbated once because that's the Lord's Day. That's respect. I thought that was going to be the last time the 13 fleshlights came into my life, but I was wrong. A couple months later, I went down to our shared kitchen, and Bob and his friends were down there, and they had taken one of the fleshlights, and he assured me this was one of the unused ones. And they had unscrewed the top, and they had taken the fleshy pink pocket pussy out of its exoskeleton, and they were swinging it around and slapping each other in the face with it. Because they were 20, and it was a Thursday night, Thirsty Thursday, and Fitzgerald was a drunk, so why wouldn't we be? And it was a great time. I got slapped in the face a couple times, and then when it was my turn, I took a look at it, and so, you know, there's the top, which is the part that you're used to seeing, and then it was almost like a genie's tail underneath, and so I took it by the genie tail, and I looked, and there was a hole in the bottom of that, too. It was a tube, so that all the fluids could go to the bottom of the Wendy's cup. And so I took that, and I went to our shared sink, and I put it over the sink, over the faucet, and I turned the water on high. And have you ever seen in cartoons when somebody turns on a fire hose and then... So this flapping vagina ghost is just shooting water all over our kitchen. I had never seen a vagina squirt like that before. And it was many, many years before I ever would again. In fact, it wasn't until I met Armand's mom the other night. Anyway, thanks everybody. I'm Ryan J. If anybody needs me, I'm going to be hiding from Armand in the bathroom.